in your thinking, and that way they can overturn the Mount Laurel doctrine. What has Democratic nominee Mikey Sherrill had to say on this issue?
Yeah, I asked Cheryl to respond to what Chitterelli's been saying about Mount Laurel, and she didn't address the Mount Laurel doctrine directly or whether she thinks there should be changes to the requirements, but she said what he's proposing is an impossible plan and that it won't do anything to address the affordability issues in the state. However, key to this election will be whether those suburban districts in the state swing Democrat or Republican. And Chitterelli clearly sees overturning Mount Laurel as an issue that speaks to those suburban voters that he's absolutely going to need to win this election.
That's WNYC's Mike Hayes. For more Mike's reporting on the New Jersey governor's race, check out our news site, Gothamist. Mike, thank you and good morning.
Thanks for having me.
WNYC is supported by Shepard Mullen, serving clients in Manhattan for over 20 years. With more than 1,100 lawyers globally, Shepard Mullen helps companies address today's legal, real estate, business, and regulatory challenges. More at shepardmullen.com.
It's the time of year when we turn to cinema that you watch with your eyes wide open when you're not covering them with your hands. The Criterion Channel is featuring the best horror films of the 2000s. On Next All of It, curator Clyde Foley joins us to discuss what makes these movies subversive, scary, and just plain fun. I'm Allison Stewart. Join us for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
It is 6:52. Marketplace Morning Report is next. And then later on Morning Edition, hundreds of thousands of federal workers have been furloughed because of the government shutdown.
It's very difficult not knowing how long this is going to last, how long I'm going to be living without getting a paycheck.
We'll hear from some of them. That's coming up in about 15 minutes on WNYC in New York. 65 and sunny and 83 for a high today, low 60s tonight, and then tomorrow another warm one, up to 81 under the sunshine. Winds gusting up to 21 miles an hour. Then Tuesday night, finally showers, maybe some thunderstorms. Tuesday night into Wednesday as well. It's 6:52.
Big box stores want a piece of the weight loss drug action.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Think or Swim. More at schwab.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. Costco members will soon be able to buy weight loss drugs Ozempic and Wegovy for a steep discount. It's the latest retailer to reach a deal to sell the drugs for just under $500 a month. Yes, that is apparently a discount. Following CVS and Walmart, Marketplace's Henry Epp has more.
The move comes as Novo Nordisk, the maker of Ozempic and Wegovy, faces growing pressure in the market, both from competitors and from insurance companies. Drug maker Eli Lilly began selling its weight loss drug Zepbound for $499 earlier this year, and other copycat drugs, many of them marketed online, have sprung up too. Some insurers have started to limit coverage of Ozempic and other GLP-1s, citing their high cost. That's led Novo Nordisk to offer its drugs at a discount direct to consumers and through these retailers. The company's share price has fallen sharply this year, and it's cut thousands of jobs. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
Constellation Brands owns Modelo and Corona beers, among others. We're going to get quarterly financial results from Constellation today after the closing bell. Back in September, the company said the outlook was not looking as good as it thought for the rest of the year because demand has been falling and because tariffs. But as Marketplace's Savannah Peters reports, beer makers could have bigger worries on their minds.
When consumer sentiment takes a hit, like we've seen recently, beer sales usually follow, says analyst Nadine Sarwat with Bernstein Research. And Constellation is feeling that faster than other brands.
Modelo, which is their biggest brand, its consumer base is around 50% Hispanic.
Sarwat says those consumers skew lower income and could be pulling back more quickly.
And the Trump administration's immigration policy and growing fear of ICE raids
are keeping many undocumented people and their families from working and shopping and going out and buying beer. Constellation imports Modelo and Corona, which also means it's bearing the cost of a 50% tariff on aluminum cans. But the whole sector is facing another threat.
The percentage of Americans reporting they drink fell down to 54% in 2025.
Lydia Saad with Gallup says that's the lowest percentage since the firm started polling Americans about their drinking habits 90 years ago. And with younger people abstaining at the highest rates, Saad says the trend is likely to continue. I'm Savannah Peters for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 2 to 0.6% range, with Dow futures up 82 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.16%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com.
Climate change does not solve itself. That requires, among many other things, money. Not just from governments, but from the private sector, too. And that private money has been flowing. Environmental nonprofit One Earth has been tracking $400 billion worth of private investment in climate change solutions. But markets play favorites. What makes the most money attracts the most money, which means some solutions have been neglected. This is according to a report from One Earth and Vibrant Data Labs. Here to talk about it with us is Justin Winters. She is co-founder and executive director at One Earth. Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
So when we talk about climate finance, what are we talking about exactly?
Well, we're talking about how resources flow, both investment and philanthropic capital, all capital really, how it's flowing to address the climate crisis.
When we think about resources flowing, investing money in things that might fight climate change, you have three buckets kind of investment that can get us there. Could you explain those and maybe give us an example?
Climate finance over the past decade has nearly doubled, but it still only remains a sliver of global investment. And in fact, less than 2% of philanthropic giving is going to climate and environment. We did a really fascinating analysis with a company called Vibrant Data Labs and assessed and evaluated nearly $400 billion in both private investment capital and philanthropic grants across more than 10,000 US-based companies and nonprofits, and identified where are those funds flowing to climate solutions and where are they not flowing.
Where is the money going and where is it not going?
So we found some incredible imbalances. And the way that we assessed this was really looking at climate solutions. So what are the things that we need to invest in and support in order to solve this incredibly complex, challenging problem? What we found is that almost 89% of all private capital in the US is flowing to the energy transition. Now, this isn't a bad thing, but there are two other critical solution pathways that we need to invest in if we want to, create a future that's livable. So that includes things like nature conservation and transitioning our food and our fiber systems to regenerative agriculture. So in the scope of our analysis, nature conservation only received 4% of total climate finance funding. And regenerative agriculture wasn't much better. It received only 7%.
So how do you get money to nature conservation or regenerative agriculture? Are we thinking like early stage venture capital funding, or is this something that governments have to take on?
Well, it's certainly something that governments have to take on. We need that form of capital too. But there's opportunity across all these pillars. For nature conservation, that's the one that is particularly reliant both on government funding as well as philanthropic capital. But, things like regenerative agriculture, there are incredible opportunities for all types of capital, including venture capital, including investment capital. But we need to be more thoughtful about the types of capital to the solutions that need to support it and what stage those solutions are at. We need to think holistically. And we need to be thinking, in an innovative mindset about new markets that are going to emerge. I'm particularly excited about regenerative agriculture and all the ways in which we can support our farmers and our food systems to transition to something that is more conducive to biodiversity, more conducive to human health.
Justin Winters is co-founder and executive director at One Earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
WNYC support comes from New York City Center, presenting Paris Opera Ballet performing Hofesh Schechter, Turn It Out